Hello, welcome to episode 407 of the Sunday New York Times Read Along, hosted by Sri Srinivasan and myself, Neil Parekh. We have a great guest for you today, Ingvill Bryn Rambøl, Head of Information at the Nobel Peace Center and host of the Nobel Peace Conference. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and the Digimentors website. Please like, comment, share, retweet, do all the things you do to make sure people find this show. And for everyone watching on replay, thank you for coming back to watch this show. We know that 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time is not everybody's favorite time of the morning, but it is 2:30 p.m. In Central European time, which is where Ingvill is. So hopefully we're getting more of a European audience today. We do this show every week. Sri and I review the print edition of the Sunday New York Times, taking audience comments and questions, as you'll see shortly. As I mentioned, we have some great conversation teed up. We'll be talking about Democracy on the Brink, the Nobel Peace Conference event, which will be in Oslo and online on the 3rd of September. We'll share a link for how you can watch that show and register in just a few moments. Sri Srinivasan has been a co-host of that event for the past 3 years, and I've been helping with social media. It is really an honor and a privilege to work with the Nobel Peace Center. The show, of course, is sponsored by Muckrack and Graphic History Company, and produced by Digimentors, the social and digital firm that Sri started several years ago with his friend Andrew Lee. And now, let's bring on Sri Srinivasan. Sri, good to see you.
Good to see you. Welcome, everybody. So happy to be here with a very special episode of the New York Times Read Along. If this is the first time you're joining us, thank you for being here. And one of the things you can do, I know Ingvill's doing it in the back, she is sharing this with her audience and pushing this out there. You can all do this. Just hit share. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and digimentors.group. On any of these platforms, just tag a friend and they can watch live or later. And we have people watching from around the world. We're going to introduce you to them in just a moment. Sharing this means they can watch us live, they can watch us later. And anyone who cares about fighting misinformation, disinformation, caring about the news, they should be told. Let's see who's here. John is watching from the East Village. Thank you for being here. Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar, longtime friend of this show, guest on this show. Always great to talk about peace, she says. Thank you. Ken Fisher is watching from Iowa. And Paula Kiger, longtime friend and producer of the show and colleague at Digimentors, is watching from Tallahassee, Florida. Gunter is watching from Austria. Greetings and welcome. And Doug Levy is watching, as he always does, at 5:30 in the morning in California. He is an early morning person like me, and Ken is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And this will give me a chance now to say hello to my friend, Auntie Sudha Parekh, who has a special relationship with this show.
Very special relationship. Sri, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. Sudha Parekh is my mom for all the regulars watching and all for all the newcomers. Mom, thank you as always for your support and for watching. It's just great to have that family connection, Sri.
Yes, absolutely. And Kevin's watching and says hello on YouTube. And we might be in two formats on YouTube right now. We're probably on our vertical, regular horizontal show, but also YouTube Shorts. So you might be watching us that way. We welcome you on LinkedIn. Someone saying huge day. And Doug says best time of the day, 5:30 in the morning on a Sunday. I don't think many people will agree, but there he is. And how we do this is we look at the paper and then we talk to our guest who helps us understand the world. And they also talk to us about their career, their journey, what they're working on. And what Ingvill's doing right now is behind the scenes. She is sharing this making sure everybody in the Nobel sphere, as they call it, knows that we are promoting the Nobel Peace Conference, which is coming up September 3rd. As Neil said, a life highlight for both of us to be able to work on this show, and so excited. Neil, your thoughts as we get ready to bring her on?
I was just going to point out that on LinkedIn, so usually we'll get the name and the photo, but this is our friend Walter Grayson, who is also helping us out by sharing this show with his colleagues. He has been on the ground. He's in Minnesota at Macalester College, former guest, most recently a guest host when you were away, Sri. But Walter has been working with the local community in Minnesota when they were fighting back against ICE. Democracy on the Brink means a lot to him, and we really appreciate all the great work he does at Macalester and beyond.
And I want to say that he was such a good co-host. I was like, hey, you two should just have your own show on top of everything else you do, Neil. You can have your own show. You have a show, by the way. Let's tell people very quickly, because I'm going to be a guest on that show that's coming up very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sri. This is certainly something that's very important to me. I do a twice a month show on mental health, Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health. This Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be focusing on the mental health impacts of social media on teens and adults. And our guest is Sri Srinivasan, CEO and co-founder of Digimentors, and of course, the creator and co-host of the Sunday New York Times Read Along. I'll take a moment, Sri. Your support for the show over the last 2.5 years has been incredible. Coming on as a guest and sharing your expertise around social media means the world to me. So thank you.
Thank you. And we're not having enough conversations about mental health. And that's why we're so proud that Digimentors and you are making this show possible for thousands of people every week to understand what's happening with mental health and the way the algorithms are affecting us is such a problematic thing. And we'll talk about how it's affecting adults as well as kids. Wherever you are in the world, folks, you can tune in and catch that show as well. And Sujana, by the way, tells us that it's looking good on YouTube too, and she's sharing. So everyone, tag, share, tell your friends, and tell us where you're watching from. Tell us about your Sunday. What's going on today? We'd love to hear. Some of you are at the end of your day, and what's something on the front page of the story on the newspaper near you? What's on TV near you? What's on the internet near you? So let's very quickly just look at yesterday's paper. I always like to start the paper by looking at Saturday's headlines. It's why Beijing bets Trump blinks first. We know taco, which is Trump always chickens out, is something that we hear. And then Trump lawsuit would target critical report. Latest intimidation bid aims at think tank. And you all know that Musk and Trump and others are very famous for being free speech people, but they don't like free speech that they don't like. So I don't know how that works. And they've targeted the Center for American Progress, and they're going after that. Look at this pictures of horses. It says rescued wild horses at Oregon Skydog Ranch. Government sale of horses were once rare, but started to rise under President Trump. Loophole leads to the slaughter of protected wild horses. U.S. sells Mustang for as low as $25 each to attract buyers that then slaughter these horses for meat. And I know there are cultures, including in parts of Canada, where they do eat horse meat. The issue here is, why is the U.S. government taking these beautiful wild animals and adding to the crisis around that? And administration tries new ways to hit Harvard. And at 77, she walked from hell for miles under hostile skies. This is the story of Nina Ivanova, set out to flee Lyman, Ukraine, and drones. Wow, that's a story. And bumpy rollout hits Mamdani's second home tax. You've heard of perhaps the pied-à-terre tax and second homes in New York. And last thing before we bring on our guest is just to show you what else is in the paper. This is the front page of today's New York Times. We'll read that with Ingvill. We have our book review in the Times, and then look at the striking cover. This is what happens if the grid fails in America, something that is very possible because infrastructure is being ignored. And this administration, instead of focusing on infrastructure, fighting the problems of AI, all the issues we have in this country, is focused on other things, as you know. All right, let's look at this is the business, this is the fashion cover, the section called T. This is the Time Style magazine, fashion that goes to some seriously playful places. That looks pretty cool. I hate to say that in 10 years of the show, we have never even opened that magazine, and we need to fix that. We need to get someone at the Times T section to join us, or we can go to their office the way we did with the New York Times Magazine. And look at this, how big tech captured American schools. And Silicon Valley is as sick of AI slop as you are, but it doesn't stop them from continuing to unleash it into the world. And final thing here that we will look at is the Sunday Styles cover, which is fiction and fame scramble a sense of reality. The Life of M. Rachel Cusk's new book has a protagonist with an uncanny resemblance to Natalie Portman. I didn't expect that. And look at this, spouse's hands-on Pentagon role. This is the wife of Pete Hegseth, and there will always be complaints when the New York Times does stories in the style section about this administration. And America was on a heroine's journey. What happened? What does that mean? We'll find out. 3 years after the girls reclaimed the kingdom in Barbie, women have been erased from the picture. Wow. So much to read, so much to talk about. If any of this is interest to you, please tag your friends and share it with them now. And we have so many people who are commenting, and we'll bring those all in. I think we're ready, Neil, for our guest.
I think so. As a reminder, our guest today is Ingvill Bryn Rambøl, head of information for the Nobel Peace Center and host of the Nobel Peace Conference. Nobel Peace Conference will be September 3rd in Oslo and online. Welcome to our guest, Ingvill. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining.
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me.
We're so happy you're here, Ingvill. Thank you for spending your time with us. I know this is a very busy period before the conference on September 3rd. I'm heading out there next weekend to be with all of you. The honor of a lifetime, a life highlight for me to be involved in any way with the Nobel sphere, as we call it, but to be with you and your team who are so professional, who know exactly how to use this opportunity of the Peace Conference to connect with the world. To be part of that is such a blessing, and thank you for allowing me to do that with you. And there we are. I believe this is last year, and we were talking about a very important topic last year. If you'll tell us what that was.
Yeah, that was last year. So the Nobel Peace Conference is our annual conference at the Nobel Peace Center, ending a full year of events related to the latest Peace Prize. So last year we were talking about nuclear weapons, the importance of disarmament, because in 2024 the Peace Prize was awarded to Nihon Hidankyo, the Japanese organization of survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So that was last year. And then in December 2025, the prize was given to Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader. So this year will be all about democracy and why democracy is important for peace, why it's important that we defend democracy, and also why it's important that we defend the people who are struggling to defend democracy. Because that is quite a problem worldwide these days. And we will get a huge group of democracy defenders coming to Oslo, and it will be like a workshop for democracy for a full week. We're looking very much forward to that.
And we want to tell everybody that you can join us to watch in person. Watch online. In person is sold out. Even if you're in Oslo, we're completely sold out. But online. It's free and you can join. There's Neil giving you the link, tiny URL /2026 Nobel Peace. You can go find it. Otherwise, go to the Nobel Peace Center. By the way, sign up for their mailing list and all the cool stuff they do. They even have a store where you can buy all kinds of great merch from the Nobel Peace Center. My favorite piece of merch is a onesie that says future Nobel candidate. And I love that.
Thank you, Sri. We even have a bestseller this year. It's been hats with Peace Please on them.
Oh, I like that. Peace, please. I love that, folks. So please check out the Nobel Peace Center. Check out the conference. It's early it's early America time, whatever time zone you're in the US. Neil, what time will you be waking up to work that show with us?
Well, to work the show, I'm up at least at 6 a.m. I'll be prepping and ready at my desk by 6:30, and we'll be live at 7 a.m.
Wow.
A couple hours.
But if you're in a different time zone, you can always watch it later. It will be available online after the conference as well.
Can you tell us who these speakers are? That'll be great for them to know.
Yeah.
Look at these amazing folks. Yeah. So
we have 3 Nobel Peace Prize laureates coming to Oslo to join us live from the stage. And what they have in common is that they work for democracy. So it's Ales Bialiatski. He's from Belarus. He was imprisoned in Belarus at the time that he got the Peace Prize in 2022. But he was released in December last year. If you remember the story about that big prisoner exchange in Belarus, he was one of the prisoner who was released. So he will be joining us. Maria Ressa, quite a famous lady in the US as well, and I think also a friend of Sri's.
Yes.
She's an amazing woman, a journalist, editor from the Philippines who has spent her whole life fighting against autocracy in her home country. She's just published a new book, A Citizen's Guide to Stand Up to Dictatorship. Looking forward to hearing more about that. And we'll also be joined by Juan Manuel Santos. He is from Colombia, received the Peace Prize in 2016. So that's 10 years anniversary now for that Peace Prize for his work with the peace agreement in Colombia, ending 50 years of civil war there. And he will talk about AI and big tech and how the whole new narrative that we are receiving from everywhere is forming and challenging democracy these days.
Ingvill,
we will have Maria Corina Machado, the laureate from last year, will also join us, but that will be virtually.
And she's in a secret location, right? Sorry, go ahead, Neil.
Sorry, Sri. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say part of the really exciting thing about this conference, I mean, having several Nobel Peace Laureates is exciting enough, right? If you get that. But you're also bringing a number of Gen Z leaders from around the world to be in conversation with these Nobel Peace Laureates, to talk about the challenges to democracy in several countries. Can you speak to that as well?
Yeah, exactly. Because what we've seen during the last couple of years is that the Gen Z activists, Gen Zers, they're born between 1997 and 2012, age of our children, Sri. They've taken to the streets demanding change. But what they have done is that they have used democratic tools in their work, and they are demanding that democracy deliver in a different way that they have seen. And they are, in some countries, they've managed to achieve change, like Nepal, for example. So Raksha Bam, who's from Nepal, joining us in Oslo, she's been in the forefront of the protest that toppled the regime there. And we will have also young people coming from Kenya, a country where they're still fighting for a change in regime. They managed to to stop a tax law that was coming up earlier this year. But all these young people, they have in common that they want democracy to deliver on a better future, on possibilities for education, for work, and for a decent life. And they will be sitting down in workshops throughout the week, ending with the conference. And they will also be discussing this with Nobel laureates and trying to craft some tools, to form some new networks that can strengthen the democracy movement worldwide. So we're hoping to create some new energy, some new ideas, and some democratic change with this event.
And I think that this image that you're using to help promote the event, it really does speak to the energy and the power of young people. And this is something we've talked about on the show, Sri, quite a bit. If you look historically in the U.S. and around the world, the civil rights movement was powered by young people. John Lewis was 20 years old in the middle of the civil rights movement. And that's where we see that passion and that energy. So I can only imagine how incredible it will be in Oslo to have that energy with the wisdom of our Nobel Peace Laureates in one place.
Thank you, Neil. Let's also just take a look at that last slide, because I want Ingvill to introduce us to two major players from within the Nobel sphere who are going to be there, so that everybody knows these names, because you're going to see them on September 3rd. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, so here we have Jørgen Vatne Frydnes. He's the chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, the committee that selects the Nobel Peace Prize laureate. He's the youngest chair in history. He was 39 at the time he got the position. And then to his right is Kjersti Fløgstad, the executive director of the Nobel Peace Center, and my boss. She will do the opening speech at the conference.
And she's great. And Kjersti is an amazing person. It was good to meet her at the UN with Sri and Neil years ago, says Walter Grayson, the professor. Walter, thank you for that comment. Kjersti is great and has lots of energy and ideas and a really dynamic person. Rose says, good morning from Connecticut. Apollo is watching from Philadelphia. Miriam says, peace always, watching from Hell's Kitchen in New York City. And there's so much going on here, so many people commenting. So we'll get to some of those comments. Tell us how you're spending your Sunday, what you're up to. We'd love to get to know you and get for all of you to know the Nobel world. One of the things that I've learned, is that people in America, especially, and maybe in Asia as well, have very little access to the Nobel world, because these happen far away in Scandinavia. And through my work with you, and also I was on the Nobel outreach board for the foundation, I was able to introduce folks to people like our friend Magnus, who you remember was the chief digital officer of the Nobel Prizes, and people are fascinated. Can you talk a little bit about this fascination people have with Nobel, and how you, the center, the foundation, are all working to kind of be more public, be more accessible, be more familiar for folks? You're obviously, everybody knows the name, knows the awards, but there's a reason you're doing all this.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Sri. I work at the Nobel Peace Center, which is the museum for the Nobel Peace Prize. So we are we are meeting the audience, the public. And as you say, there's a lot of secrecy, a lot of closeness to the Nobel Peace Prize itself, because it is supposed to be secret. No one's supposed to know. We don't even know who the candidates are. So it's a very closed process, and the celebrations in December, when the laureate comes to Oslo to receive the medal and the diploma, is also a bit high ranking. It's red carpets, it's kings and queens, and big parties for invited guests. So our job at the Peace Center is to open this up to the public. They can come visit, they can come learn more about the Nobel Peace Prize, about the Nobel Peace Prize laureates, and about all the different causes that they are fighting for, and and get the impression that this is something we're in together. And what's so important to us is to use the Peace Prize and the story about the Peace Prize laureates to engage a broader audience and to make them realize that this is something they can all take part in. Because peace is not made on red carpets. Peace is something that is crafted every day by each and every one of us. So we're trying to open up, we're trying to invite people in and involve them in different kinds of ways, through art, through the events that we're doing, through our exhibitions.
And I've been, again, blessed to be at the Nobel ceremonies, the banquet, all of that, both in Stockholm and in Oslo. And one of the things that struck me is how much the countries of Sweden and Norway embrace the entire experience. And in some ways, the banquet, and it's on TV in a big way, I compare it a little bit to kind of your Super Bowl. And people watch, families get together, have dinner, and watch the banquet on TV. To us in America, it's a photograph. It's an idea that this is there, maybe a few seconds of attention. But to you in Scandinavia, you're really proud of all of this, and you involve the city. The whole Nobel week is a kind of peace city for Oslo.
Definitely, it is, and since last year we've done this celebration outdoors. It's December, it's cold, but people show up. They take part in the celebration. We have a torch parade celebrating the laureate. But you know, Sri, it's our biggest visitor group is Americans. So it's not that everybody in Norway will run to the Nobel Peace Center once a week. We have a lot of tourists coming. Tourists are the ones most interested in the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, that's great, and we want to keep that happening. If you can, just tell us a little bit about what they'll see at the Peace Center. Maybe, Neil, we can go to the front page of the website so we can show them.
Yeah.
But here's Walter's comment: ecstatic to be in the conversation today. The Nobel Peace Conference brings hope to all of us. The September 3rd event will be a vital kickoff to the academic year and a transition at Macalester College International Roundtable in October. Everyone is welcome to join us for that conversation as well. So check that out. Ingvill, we need more global structures to empower people under the age of 35 to confront the crises that humanity faces. Pope Leo is doing this work, and a coalition of the Peace Center, the Vatican, colleges like Macalester could take immediate steps forward, maybe with an event in the US, in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Look, you've been invited to Minneapolis and the Midwest of America. I think that's beautiful. And for some of you who know the history of Norway, basically about a third of Norwegians at the time, in the middle of the last century, migrated to the US and went to a place that they would be most comfortable, most familiar. And that was places like Minneapolis and Minnesota, and found the weather, the food, the energy of that place very similar to what they experience in Scandinavia in winter and in the summer, and decided to move there. And that was because of the poverty that Norway experienced, unfortunately, at that time. Many decades later, in the 20th century, Norway would discover oil and become one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So it went from being one of the poorest countries in the world to one of the wealthiest, but more importantly, most generous nation in the world. And Norway every day supports very important development projects around the world in a way that most people cannot even grasp. And with America ceding its soft power by not supporting projects around the world, by killing USAID, it's been Norway and other countries that have stepped up and are saving millions of lives. And on behalf of a grateful world, I will say to Ingvill and all Norwegians, thank you for what you have done. And now I'll give you a chance to respond to Walter's invitation to come to Minnesota.
That's amazing. I really love the idea, and I wanted to say to Walter and other people who might have a university group or an organization. If you want to host a watch party, live stream the conference, and create your own little fireplace around this event, you're welcome to do so. You can just look up the link that Neil posted, and you will find information on how to reach out to us.
And
Send
one
me
thing
an
we can
email.
do, yeah, and in our case with Walter especially, if you do that, Walter, if the timing works, and I know kids are not prone to get up very early in the morning, but maybe it's a half day conference, so maybe the time there'll be like a more decent hour when we're live. Either during it or after, Ingvill and I can come on FaceTime and say hello to your group and maybe answer some questions about how it all went, maybe then or later, if it makes sense. Ingvill's very busy, by the way, during this conference, because not only is she the host of the Nobel Peace Conference, she also runs the communication shop at the center. So there are journalists, there are questions, there are people. So she has to be directing and doing a lot of stuff. So it's just really important to give her the time to do that. But after that, I'm sure we would be able to do some fun stuff with all of you. Let's say hi to some.
I'll just say, Sri, on behalf, I mean, if Walter, if you can pull something together and we can get the Nobel Peace Center involved in some kind of event in Minneapolis, Sri, I'm saying Digimentors will be right there helping to organize and amplify this.
Yes.
I think it'd be a great partnership.
I agree. Mary says, good morning from Charlotte, North Carolina. In need of this positive conversation. Mary, thank you as always for your support. Ingvill, you should know Mary is one of the great journalists of our time and someone who knows politics so well that she has interviewed so many presidents and the great political figures of our time. She has a podcast, writes for Roll Call, and a great friend of the show, has been on the show, and she and I host shows around the elections. And we've got to talk later, Mary, about how we prep for the midterms and what kind of coverage we're going to do. Deborah is watching from the mountains of Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh, where it's 60 degrees this morning. Fascinating to be learning about the process of the Nobel Peace Prize. I was fortunate to visit the Peace Center in Oslo in 2019, involving the younger people from around the world. So she's giving you applause for that, is to be commended, she says. So that's great. Naomi is watching. Gratitude and appreciation for the peacemakers of the world, needed more than ever. What is that line from the Bible? Blessed be the peacemakers, I think is the line. And Walter has already says we're going to do this. And another Deborah is watching from sunny DC. Thank you for being here. Thank you all. We're going to get to the paper, but we want to talk a little bit more about the Peace Center, the Peace Prize. When people ask about this conference, because there are several conferences, I like to say, and Ingvill will fact check me in real time, I like to say that the Peace Center's Peace Conference is the kind of final event of the Nobel calendar. And they have a great exhibition that runs for about a year, that will end around now after the conference, because the first week of October is the start of the Nobel calendar. And that's when what happens is so important, where every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, are the science prizes, and then the literature prize on Thursday, and then on Friday is the peace announcement. Monday, the following Monday, is economics. And that's an amazing week. And then there's the prep to the banquet and the celebration, which is on December 10th, the birthday of Alfred Nobel. By decree, that will be the day the prizes are given out. And that starts a whole year of events around the world, where the laureates travel and are celebrated around the world. And then it ends with the Nobel Peace Conference. So how much of that did I get right?
Just about everything.
It only took me 5-6 years. Yeah.
I just want to say one thing, and that is that we at the Nobel Peace Center, we are as excited as everybody else on that Friday in October, because we don't get any heads up. We don't know anything about who will be awarded the Peace Prize. So we'll be watching the press conference alongside the rest of the world. And then we will applaud the new winner and then run off to our
Get to
desk
work.
and start working. So that's a bit like working in the news, actually.
Right.
So I will, Ingvill, just to clarify, you work with the Nobel Peace Center, but when they announce the winner of the prize, you have no advance. You can't prep the work. You can't prep the materials. You're racing like with everyone else. You can't. You
Exactly.
can't just hit publish when they announce it.
It's a secrecy to everyone, including us.
Wow.
And one of the things that happens is that the there's a whole process around how the winner is told, right? There are all these fun stories about missed calls and people think they're being pranked and all that stuff. But we should also clarify there is the Peace Center and there's the Institute. And the Institute is the one that chooses the winner. And that was the very young chairman you saw that we were mentioning earlier. And they're the team, a very small team that determines the winner of this prize. Because what Alfred Nobel did is he took the 5 prizes of his lifetime. The economics is basically in memory of Alfred Nobel, but the 5 in his will, he decided that 4 would go to great institutes in Sweden, his home country, and then 1 of them would go to Norway, which was the neighbor and tied together in so many ways. Norway and Sweden are connected so closely, and that's how he gave the Nobel Peace Institute. He gave it to Norway, and then the institute. Either the institute or was there already, and you can tell me, was there an institute he named, or was that just that it was built around this?
Yeah, what he wrote in his testament was that the Nobel Peace Prize should be handed out by a committee selected by the Norwegian Parliament. Because at the time of Alfred Nobel's death, Norway and Sweden were under the same king, but we had our own government. So and it's still like that. We're still following the testament. We're obliged to. So the Peace Prize laureate is selected by a committee that is pointed out by the Norwegian Parliament, and the institute was built around the committee to support the work, to research the candidates, and also to be the administrative center of all the events that are going on in the center.
And as early as 1904, I see. So that's pretty amazing. But by the way, I think we have doubled or tripled the percentage of people who are going to be registered and watching from Rhode Island, because Naomi is watching from Rhode Island. So we're delighted. Naomi, thank you. And everybody register. Neil is putting this, you want to register so that you'll get an alert. Either an hour before or a couple of days before, and Ingvill will know, and her team does that so beautifully. And so you'll know, and then you can watch it on the website. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on social media, but you want to know when this is live so you can watch us. Even if 7 a.m. is not your jam, as we go in, we can at some point show the program, Neil, so that people can see this is the first hour, the second hour. There's a break in there where I will go out into the festival, which is happening in parallel, and we'll have there'll be music and so many great activities. So please join us. And as we are saying with Walter, if you have a high school or a college class, pipe in half an hour of this and get them to see Nobel laureates in action. What I love the most about being part of all of this is not about famous people or anything, Ingvill. It's about excellence. It's the fact that in the Nobel Prizes overall, excellence in medicine, in physics, in chemistry, as well as in literature and in economics. And here is the prize itself. Here's the sessions. Maybe you can talk us through a little bit of what that's going to be like. And then, by the way, you got to get to the paper and talk about the news as well. So go ahead, please, Ingvill.
You're in charge of the time today, Sri. I'll try to control the event on the 3rd. So we have these 3 questions we're asking. What are the biggest threats to democracy globally? What lessons can be learned from democracy movements around the world? And how may the international community help democracy movements? So speaking in the opening session will be Kjersti Fløgstad, our director. And together with Sri and myself, she will frame the topic. And then we dive into session 1, where we talk about how people are fighting to defend democracy in the face of rising authoritarianism. We live in a world where democracy is on decline, autocracy is on the rise. What are the early warning signs? What should people look for? And how do you actually stand up to an authoritarian regime?
Well, one second, while he's doing that, let's do the math, Neil, if you could. What are the timings? So we started at 7 a.m. Eastern time with that, and 15 minutes later, so at 7:15, they'll get to meet 3 Nobel laureates, as you can see. So you're about to tell us about the 7:15 time and Gen Z activist, yeah.
Yeah, so there will be Maria Corina Machado talking via video, and Ales Bialiatski will be there. Nargis Mohammadi from Iran, she will pre-record a video. She's still in Iran, not able to leave the country. She's been in and out of prison the last years. And we will also be joined by Andrew Regalado. He's an activist from the US who is working now on strengthening democracy in the US. And then we will hear from the woman who is the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to freedom of assembly. Her name is Gina Romero, and she has just written a new report on Gen Z activism and how the Gen Z is shaping the future of civic space. She will present that report at our conference, and she will later bring it to the UN General Assembly later in September. So it's brand new. You will hear about it first in our conference. I also will have Raksha Bam from Nepal talking about how the Gen Zers took to the streets and actually changed the regime in Nepal.
And this now gets us to about 8:30. So now we're at 9 a.m. Is that correct, Neil? Is my math correct? Is it 9 a.m. for the second session? So this might be more accessible to some of our audiences in the US, especially if you have young people. You can see again, we're going to have 2 Nobel laureates there and an activist. So go ahead, please, Ingvill.
Yeah, so this is where Maria Ressa and Juan Manuel Santos will sit down and talk about how big tech, AI, and the algorithms are changing and challenging democracy. And they will be joined by Wanjira Wanjiru. She's an activist from Kenya. And I'm excited about this conversation because I think she will bring to the table this very divided picture of social media, because in Kenya they used social media to gather people, to mobilize people, but then on the other side the same people are being targeted now in smearing campaigns on social media. So they see both sides of it. Very, very divided picture.
Amazing. Look at that list. This really, really such important people will be speaking. By the way, Eva works at the Ford Foundation. The Ford Foundation itself is, I can almost see it out my window here, Ingvill. So we can see that. And then this is still in the nine o'clock hour. So you have great speakers coming. Yeah. So let's, and then the concluding remarks will be around what time?
So we'll close to 5 CT. Yeah.
So about 11
That will
a.m.
be
Eastern.
11, yeah.
So from 7 to 11 is where we're, so it's 4 hours altogether of programming. And so folks can join. Remember, you can watch it all recorded at the nobelpeace.org website. So you can see it there if you're not able to make any of this live. But register anyway, get on their mailing lists. They do so much good work. And if you ever get to Scandinavia, please go to Oslo and please go to the Nobel Peace Center. We have so many comments and coming in. We just want to say hi to a few people. Stefan is watching. Peace to all, he says. Thank you, Stefan. And look at all the cool stuff that's people are talking about. Sudha says, great show, highly knowledgeable. We have a very good guest in Ingvill, which is so cool. And we see here, Walter's very kind. Digimenters is the future of interactive news media. Apollo's watching from Philadelphia. I hope this Nobel Peace Conference Festival doesn't poke the ire of Donald Trump. It is blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Thank you, Apollo in Philadelphia, for getting the full quote in there. And we know, multiple people have said this to me when they know about my work with the conference. They say, is President Trump coming to Norway? And I say he is not coming to Norway for this anyway. And Pradnya says, greetings on the road between Philadelphia and Silver Spring, Maryland. And or I guess Silver Spring, yeah, Maryland, right? Yeah. And then Ron Thomas, good morning from Dubai. Ron watches us every week in Vail, whether he's in Dubai or Malaysia or in New Jersey. He just travels all over, always watching. And Naomi says, John Lennon said it best. So we have either the Bible or John Lennon. And he said it best. All we are saying is give peace a chance. And you have a connection to the Lennon family in some of the work that you have done at the Peace Conference, at the Peace Center, right, Ingvill?
Well, talking about that tune is actually played from the bell tower of the Oslo City Hall every Friday when we release our peace dove.
Oh,
So
wow.
Really?
A peace dove is flying, a real dove is flying from the windows of the Nobel Peace Center every Friday in the summer season. And as the dove crosses the City Hall Square, the bell tower will play Give Peace a Chance.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's quite a connection. And we've had exhibitions with Yoko Ono a couple of times, if that's what you were.
Yes, that's what I meant. And Walter says maybe the Times needs a regular section on international peace. Well, they certainly cover all the war that's all over the place. Can Machado get another Peace Prize because she gave hers to Trump? Here's a question for you.
That is a very good question, and I think a lot of people are wondering about that. But she is in no position to give away the prize. She has given away a token of the prize, the medal, which is hers to do whatever she wants with. But she is still the recipient of the Peace Prize. That does not change. So a medal can change owner, but the title of Nobel Peace Prize laureate cannot. So it's just to be clear on that. She is still the Peace Prize laureate.
Okay.
And before whoever holds the medal is not.
And if for God forbid somebody happened to need money and wants to sell it or whatever, that's okay. But the prize still is hers. The medal can be passed on generationally, of course, but this is that. Let's just a couple of other technical things about the award so people know. Anybody in the world who is in certain categories can nominate a Peace Prize candidate, but therefore you might hear people saying, I was a nominee. but in fact, it's not as impressive as it sounds, perhaps, potentially. Tell us, please.
Yeah, so there are quite a few people across the world who are able to nominate. Sitting members of parliaments can nominate. Previous laureates can nominate, and that means also heads of organizations who have received the Nobel Peace Prize, like Amnesty, Red Cross, like that, and professors of certain subjects can nominate. Yeah, so it's quite an
Tens of
extensive
thousands
group.
of people could nominate. So the nomination
Exactly.
is not a bar or a barrier. It's in the committee. It's in their years-long process of vetting, checking, all of that becomes a thing. And
So it does not mean that the committee has chose. It's not a short list from the committee side. It's just different people having nominated their candidate, and the list of candidates is not public. So if you hear about a nominee, it's because the nominator has told about his or her nomination.
One thing that was interesting this last year, earlier in the year, Ingvill, and again, it's a nomination. It's more for public consumption. But my recollection is that the people of Minnesota or Minneapolis were actually nominated for their work in some of the protests earlier in the year. So that's, how many times have you had, as opposed to an individual nominee, have you had a group win the Nobel Peace Prize? I think that was last year with the anniversary of the bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was an organization, right? Not an individual that won the prize.
Yeah, so it's the prize can be given to 1, 2, or 3 individuals or 2 organizations. So I would have to look up the numbers,
Sure.
but it's quite a few organizations who have received the Peace Prize also, and it can be also given to a combination of an organization and a person, which is also quite common. When Kofi Annan received the prize, it was together with the UN. So it's like things like that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
another thing that people should know, that you have to be a living person to win the prize.
Yes, that's right. It's not given posthumously. That's not possible.
And since we have a lot of people of Indian origin who watch the Nobel Prizes, the Nobel Peace Prize was famously not given to Mahatma Gandhi, and the Peace Committee talked about that and issued a statement about this in over the years about this, didn't they, Ingvill?
Yeah, Mahatma Gandhi is often called the missing laureate because he was nominated several times, but he was never awarded the prize. But the year Gandhi died, the prize
In 48. Yeah.
the prize was not given to anyone. That has happened sometimes during the history, especially during the periods around the 2 world wars. The committee could not find a suitable candidate.
And in this case, they said we could not find a suitable living candidate, and
Exactly.
that was their nod to Gandhi. And this is all explained in great detail. There is a rule that there is silence for 50 years or so, and then after 50 years, they were allowed to talk about it, and they did. And before I learned about all of this, Ingvill, I can tell, as many Indians who didn't know all the details, to then see that things in history happen that can be considered wrong, but it's what you do with it. How do you approach it? How do you deal with and acknowledge the mistakes that have been made? That is the most important. And the Nobel world is, I think, done right by Mahatma Gandhi in that way. And so that's really good. So let's remind everybody, what are the deadlines if you want to get nominated for a Nobel Prize? If you know any parliamentarians, professors, and you feel like you deserve a Nobel Peace Prize, what should they do, Ingvill?
So they should go to the Nobel Institute's website and find the right way of nominating, and then they should fill in that form by 31st of January. So they
Right.
have quite a while to think. So for this
And
year, it's
yeah.
already too late.
Yeah. And January 31st, and they shouldn't fill it in. Those nominators should fill it in on your behalf. And this sounds so far-fetched, but I can tell you, Ingvill, that there are people who believe they deserve a Nobel Prize in particular subjects, and they're not
I
shy
get
about
emails
it.
every week from people who think they deserve the Peace Prize.
And they're not shy. And what I have said to at least one person who I believe is doing good work is continue to do the good work. That's the important thing. And one day, if stars align, you may get nominated and you may win. But there's nothing anybody can do, anything you can do to make that happen. And don't spend your energy thinking about that, because they're picking one prize a year for the next 25 years of this person's lifetime, right? And and there are millions of great organizations. So don't set your sights on the Nobels or any prize. Do it because the work matters. Do it because you care. Do the work. And when you look at these winners, these are people who, in almost every case, didn't do it because they wanted a prize. They did it because they saw something wrong in the world and wanted to fix it. And so that's important. Folks, we're going long on the show this week because we haven't even gotten the paper, and we have so much to talk about. We're so grateful to everybody watching, and thank you. This is a good time for you to share and tag the show. Tell somebody on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Tell them about the show. Text them about the show. They can watch it live or later. Neil will have this all on these various platforms. He'll also put it on Spotify as well as on Apple Podcasts. People have been asking us for 10 years for that, Neil, and we're finally able to make that happen. And so this is, and by the way, in our chats, we're seeing people. Oh, there it is. That's what it looks like on Apple. That's on Spotify. And here is Robin nominating Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, and she's welcome to say that, obviously. And anybody who feels that way should make sure that happens. And as I understand it, the Pakistani ambassador in Norway has nominated President Trump maybe even more than once, because they did it publicly. They didn't do it in a kind of confidential way. They did that publicly, and that becomes geopolitics and all of that that's going on right now in the war. So we're not commenting on the validity of any particular winner, but or candidate or possible candidate, but people will talk about this stuff all the time, of course. So I think we're ready to talk about the news, unless there's, Ingvill, anything else we should know? Anything else? Neil's like, yeah, move on. Let's get to the paper.
It's 9:30, almost 9:30, and thank you for reminding our viewers, when we have a guest on the show, we do extend it to our traditional 10 a.m. end time. So hopefully folks can stay with us for an extra half hour this morning. Sri, what's in the paper today?
Yeah, look at the paper. This is still a thing. Newspapers still are a thing. There were famously, a professor said, not me, a professor said that print newspapers will die by 2025 in the United States. And it's not that they're thriving, the opposite. Tens of thousands of journalists have lost their jobs, but there are some newspapers that are continuing to survive. And in one case, at least the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the newspaper industry is thriving. And we'll hear from Ingvill in a moment about what she reads. She's a subscriber to the New York Times, but what she reads, what is her go-to newspaper, and what she carries around in her iPad. And you learn a little bit about the Scandinavian news industry, including a brand new news site that she's going to teach us about called Demo, which has a Danish counterpart, and then they opened in Norway. So you're going to hear all about that, but let's get to the paper and let's see what's in the paper today. The lead story: how Trump allies shape policy for homeless, billionaires crusade, Cicero Institute steering GOP away from housing first. And the influence of money in everything we do is so blatant in the Trump administration. The other story here you can see is Carney takes risky stand with Trump, defiance in face of U.S. trade threats. And that is Mark Carney, who is a hero to many people for the way he has defended his country. And one of the things he said overnight, Neil, that you may have caught, is that we are basically at war now with the US in terms of trade. And because you're defending it when you have 25, 30, 50% tariffs, you are at war because economic sanctions, economic work like that, and economic penalties are the equivalent of war, just as we say that the blockade of Cuba is an act of war. This is known in the world when you blockade, as America is discovering, when the Iranians blockade or block the Straits of Hormuz, that is an act of war, and we're in fact in the war. Robin says I prefer hard copy of the news.
Hard copy, and that's what this show is all about, Sri. We celebrate the print edition of the New York Times, and we actually look through the paper instead of just looking on our phones and tablets. One of the things is that we'll see articles that we wouldn't necessarily find. We call it serendipity. If you're just flipping through, you might stumble upon an article that you may not read otherwise. So, Robin, there's something we can agree with there. The hard copy of the paper is a great thing.
And Ingvill will talk through us later. There's a particular story she's interested in, which is about a family that's divided and how we can try to find common ground. What is there a word in Norwegian for serendipity and the act of kind of finding things by accident? You'll think about it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll think about the best. I guess the translation wouldn't mean very much to you anyways, but we have a couple of words that would cover that.
I know that. Yeah. Sorry?
I totally agree with you. I mean, on reading papers.
Great. So let's talk, Ingvill, maybe you can jump in. This is a fellow European person and leader. Maloney cuts the hard right a path to power. And the subhead is From Outcast to Avatar of Post-Fascist Italy. So any thoughts on this? It's evident that with Donald Trump, I believe things would be easier. Given our convergence on immigration and woke culture, things have turned out otherwise. Giorgia Meloni, the Italian prime minister, on a strained relationship with Donald Trump. I'm actually surprised to hear that because I thought he would love working with her.
Yeah, it seemed they were getting along really well at the beginning of his second term, but things are changing in their relationship as well, which might be related to that story about the family who finds out that they have different points of view and find it difficult to meet across differences.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, we're going to take a look at with my, now brought out my camera so that I'm not holding the paper like that. By the way, we'll just show you there's speaking of peace, there is the UN headquarters right there. You see the building from the side. That's UN headquarters, and that's the East River in New York City and Roosevelt Island. And at the base of Roosevelt Island is the Four Freedoms Park, and named after the Four Freedoms of President of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. What is your experience in the U.S.? How much time have you spent here?
Not too much, actually. I've been to New York a couple of times. I've been to Maine, where I have family. Maine is, I don't know, I think Maine is probably the state where everything is most similar to Norway. The nature, the climate.
But as we discussed earlier, most of your compatriots ended up in the Midwest more than Maine.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay. Faded Dreams in Hollywood. Royals relate. And as we know, Harry and Meghan have moved. We have an obsession in the US, as you know, about the British royal family. You live in a country with a very beloved royal family. People love and respect the king and the queen, the crown prince. Talk about them a little bit. And they're involved in the Nobel Prizes.
Oh, it's funny you ask, because I'm actually heading to the castle this evening.
Okay, as one does.
Just outside, as where normal people can go. I'm not a regular guest inside the castle.
And I'll be Ingvill. I'll be at Oldcastle this evening. That's
White-
my address is
But
Oldcastle Lane.
it says something about Norwegian royalty, because every August, the Queen and King will give, as their birthday present to the people living in Oslo, a free concert. So the Philharmonic Orchestra will give an outdoor concert at the square in front of the castle tonight. And that happens every August. And it's a way of celebrating the kings and queens' birthdays. And that says a little bit about our royalty. They're very connected to the people.
Yeah, and you have a youngish crown prince and the royal family. Here's Apollo saying Carney is no one to play with. He was the head of both Canada's and UK central banks. He already declaring the era of Pax Americana is over. Robin says family should not get divided in politics. Families will always be family. Policies change. And Evan says this is refreshing talking about the paper. Thank you so much. So people like that. Yeah.
Let's go ahead with Robin's comment. Let's go ahead and jump to that article that we referenced earlier. It's on. We checked right before the show because it was. We knew it was going to be in the print edition, page 16. It's a podcast where families share their disagreements. It's in a divided America, one family talks it out. The children haven't budged the parents and vice versa, but their podcast still brings them closer. Ingvill, you saw this article. Again, you have a few hours ahead of us, so you had time to really dig into the paper.
It's called, by the way, just giving everybody the name, it's called The Necessary Conversation, if you want to find it on YouTube.
Yeah, I haven't heard the podcast, but that article caught my attention. And as you said, Neil, it's afternoon here in Norway now, and I love spending my Sunday mornings reading newspapers, drinking way too much coffee. So a couple of hours spent with the coffee and newspapers in the morning is what I love about weekends. And this article caught my attention because at the Peace Center, we're working on a dialogue program because we believe that the ability to disagree with one another is something that society is lacking nowadays. We seem to, or a lot of people seem to cut contact with people who they disagree with over politics or other important value issues like religion or other forming value issues. And that was exactly what happened to this family. They were unable to talk to each other. I think they had a year without contact. And then the son of the family got the idea that let's make a podcast. Let's meet publicly and talk about politics. And they did. And that brought the family back together.
That's amazing. Yeah, it says, what about we talk once a week as a family on Zoom? Chad said to his parents, and that's how that happened. And that's Chad. That's Mary Lou. And then Haley Pop says, I go into my bedroom and shut the door and I read a book. That's how long it takes her, 2-3 hours after a stressful session talking to her family. That is so interesting. And I credit them for not just cutting their family members off. They did it for a year, but they came back together. And that goes back to Robin's point that families will always be family. Robin, thank you for that. We appreciate it. And
at the bottom of the article online, so we like looking at the print edition, but sometimes there are also special features online. And at the bottom of this article, the Times actually has a survey that they encourage people to fill out. If you have a political disagreements damage your relationships, elaborate. Have your politics shifted in recent years? What questions or thoughts do you have about this family's approach? You see some of the other questions as well. And I do want to note that this article is actually part of the Headway initiative, which is a relatively new project at the Times. I'm going to scroll back up so we can see it. I made it larger for folks. Sorry about that. But the Headway Initiative is funded through grants from the Ford Foundation and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation and others. It's a fully Times editorial project, but Sri, our good friend Monica Drake, I believe, had helped initiate this project.
Been on the show 3 times.
Ago.
Yeah,
Oh.
So
she's been a former guest on the show. So great. If you look at it both in print or online, it's a really extensive article with a lot of great features. Definitely encourage folks to check that out.
Thank you, Neil. As we move on to the paper, I see here a headline about Nancy Kissinger, widow of the former Secretary of State and Nobel laureate. Do you find yourself having to defend some of the choices over long before you got to this, whether it's the Kissingers or Israelis or Palestinians who won? Like, have you had to defend the winners? And what do you say at that time?
That's our privilege working at the Nobel Peace Center. We don't have to defend the committee. The committee makes its choices, and they defend it themselves. What we do is explain, educate, and go into dialogue with our audiences. And it's always, I find it interesting whenever there's a controversial prize, because it sparks off so many interesting conversations. And I don't think, and I don't think the Peace Prize would have been so popular and so well known if there were never a controversial prize.
All right, I love that answer. We were just looking at an obituary. Disagreements over human dignity are difficult to reconcile. When someone negates another person's human rights, especially with appeals to violence, healing may take years. The patience to listen and address injury is essential. Thank you, Walter. Very beautifully said. And then I want to ask you about Norway.
Just a few more in that line. Robin says that they avoid political conversations with family because feelings may get hurt. And then Stan Durko, who's watching, says, I'll never speak to my former family who voted for a 34-count felon and sex abuser. Just in those 3 comments, we see the full range of how these political discussions impact family dynamics. I think the Times really hit on a nerve for folks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to ask a question to Ingvill about Norwegian press culture. Here, at least at the New York Times, the obituaries are a major function of the newspaper to write in-depth obituaries of people who deserve them. So, for example, Nancy Kissinger, who wasn't just his wife, she was very politically savvy, traveled all over the world with him, was acknowledged as being kind of his right hand, and she got an obituary. So what is the obituary culture in Norway?
Very much the same, I would say. But I think I'm afraid they're mostly read by people quite mature in age.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Yes, we have the same tradition.
Okay, good to know. But here's an unusual thing, folks. A whole page to do with dancers and dancing world who have passed away. Pauline Clayton, 103, British dancer and star in a seminal Sleeping Beauty, the last known surviving soloist from an event that changed American dance. So that's Pauline in 1945. That's so interesting, right? And then this is Ted Striggles, who was a dancer till 1976 and then became a lawyer and helped dancers as a lawyer, dies at 84. And he wrote Poor Dancer's Almanac, was an irreverent guide to the basics of economic survival for dancers. And we talk a lot about how can people survive in the arts world. And so there is Ted, who helped people in an unusual profession survive and thrive, apparently. And that was all kind of news to me. Tell us a little bit about your reading habits, and you are a subscriber to the New York Times.
Yeah, I'm an online subscriber. I don't have that beautiful pile of paper on my desk that you have, Sri. I'm a bit envious because I'm a journalist from from my past. I used to work in the press for 20-something years. And what I really miss about the newsroom is the way we used to sit around the table with a pile of newspapers on it and read and discuss the news together. And I grew up in a home with newspapers on the table as well, discussing the news with my family. And I think that is just well, it's something I miss. There's just the smell and the feel of it. So, but my subscription nowadays is like this. So I still read. This is the main broadsheet in Norway called Aftenposten, and I still read the. I read it the way the paper will look.
So it's called a replica. In some places, we call it a replica edition.
Yeah. And I like that just because of what you talked about, Sri, that if you're only looking at the formatted edition on your phone, you will not get all those articles, little notes that are there in the print edition. So I have two newspapers that I subscribe to, two Norwegians. Two broadsheets. It's Aftenposten and Morgenbladet. Morgenbladet is a weekly, more cultural deep dive kind of a newspaper. I read the New York Times and the Guardian occasionally to have a broader picture.
And you have a tabloid in Norway, right? VG.
Yeah, VG is where I go for breaking.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. By the way, here is
and the Norwegian Broadcasting for breaking news. So I get these signals on my phone saying something happened.
Yeah,
I'm a bit of a news addict.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. This is the New York Times fashion magazine women's edition. And Sujata says, you need to ask my daughter Sarika to come on to school you on fashion skills, not from her mother, from Amma. Amma is a word for mother, and that's lovely. And we have some other comments and things. Neil, you got her bio up. Oh, this is
Ingvill's media background. I was going to ask if you can explain just a few of the places that you've worked over before you joined the Nobel Peace Center. It looks like it was if I'm doing my math really quickly, 15 years or so as a journalist, right?
She started at the age of 5.
Well, I decided at the age of 12, but nobody hired me until, I had my first job in Aftenposten actually at the age of 18. So I've been in the game for quite a while. I had my first years as full-time employee at the Norwegian Broadcasting. I was there for 13 years approximately, working with local and national news and also making news documentaries for a while. And then I jumped off and became a freelance journalist, writing for Aftenposten and other news magazines. And then I started at the Nobel Peace Center 10 years ago.
Lovely.
Yeah, so I had 20-something years in the press before that.
By the way, I told my parents when I was 12 I was going to become a journalist. They started crying immediately because Indian parents don't want journalists in their family. Here is Robin saying, what I miss about the news is reporting the news, not personal opinions. And I think that's, I think they're both valid. I write, Neil, this is a moment for me to tell everyone about our newsletter that I write, where we talk about the news every week, but it's strongly opinionated from me. In this case, we wrote, if Democrats work together, they will win. It's the if they'll work together. And as you can see, we have 10,000 subscribers in the Sunday Note on Substack, srinet.substack.com. But we're also on LinkedIn. You can just subscribe to my LinkedIn and you can get the newsletter as well. And we have paid subscribers now. We're very grateful to them. So that's one way you can support this show is to subscribe and be a paid subscriber if you can afford it. But we also have a new way, Neil, the Patreon account. Let's tell everybody how they can see that. So the Patreon is a service where you can go in and you can put in a couple of dollars, and that's a way of supporting not just this, but the newsletter, the show, as well as what we call all our online shenanigans, including my 30 groups I run around the world on topics like AI, baseball, hip hop, also by geography, where we curate low volume, high impact, high utility conversations around the world. And we would love to have you support us. And it's a way to support the show. A couple of bucks a month will make a big difference. And we will truly appreciate all of you for doing that. I'm in the middle of writing my newsletter now. And Neil's also showing us another big project we work on. This is the Jaipur Literature Festival. And Ingvill should know about this, that this is one of the bucket list items I tell everybody in the world should go to. The Mother Festival in Jaipur, India, January 14th to 18th. It's the 20th anniversary in 2027, but it's also coming to New York and America, 7 cities, 3 weeks in New York and Canada, US and Canada, 130 global and local authors, performers in 7 cities in 3 weeks. So please check out JLF USA. It's been called the greatest literary show on earth. By Tina Brown and Ingvill. Just to give you a sense of the numbers, they have 500,000 people go to Jaipur to see this festival. So as big and as fun as the Nobel Peace Conference and Festival is, I'm sure you're happy it's not 500,000 people.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I would love to go.
Yeah. America was on a heroine's journey. What happened? And this is about Barbie. I was surprised, actually. I didn't know what this was. 3 years after the girls reclaimed the kingdom in Barbie, women have been erased from the picture. Susan Faludi, the famous writer, commentator, has written this. I've not read this, so if anybody has, let us know what this is about. I think that would be interesting to hear what this is. Let's look at Sunday styles. Fiction and fame scramble a sense of reality. Life of M, Rachel Cusk's new book, has a protagonist with an uncanny resemblance to Natalie Portman. And Natalie, of course, is a beloved star who has been in everything from Star Wars to one of my favorite movies of all time, Neil and Ingvill. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called The Professional. And she's very young in that. She may be 10 or 11. And she acts with a great French actor in a totally violent movie. This young girl is in there, but it's a very popular movie called The Professional. And this story here is spouse's hands-on Pentagon role. Jennifer Hegseth, the wife of the defense secretary, is now his most influential advisor. And she, I think, was also a former Fox News producer. And so we have TV stars. 3 of us are journalists on the show. We like journalists, but I don't know if any of our friends should be running the largest military in the world or be involved in that in any way. Let's go here. Sunday business cover. By the way, are the broadsheets in Norway also in sections, or is it all like one piece?
Yeah, Aftenposten, the newspaper I just showed you on my iPad, has 3 or 4 sections on Saturday, which is the bigger newspaper day here.
Yeah, so just so you know, Ingvill, actually Saturday, half the New York Times, if you subscribe, comes on Saturday because you can't finish them all on Sunday. So only for subscribers you get half. Neil?
That's interesting that Saturday is the big news day in Norway, you said, right, Ingvill? Whereas it's Sunday here.
Yeah, the newspaper tend to be thicker on Saturday than Sunday, yeah.
And just so everybody knows, Norway has very strong blue laws, meaning Sundays are really holidays, right? Like there may be 1 or 2 places where you can get medicine or food, but restaurants are open, but the stores are really closed, correct?
Yeah, it's our day to rest, be out, enjoying nature.
Look at this. Walter's a fan of the movie because this is a great line from Gary Oldman, the Oscar-winning actor, who says, "Bring me everyone." Everyone, says somebody. It says everyone. It's a famous meme. Sorry, both of you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, so you got to go watch this. If you're in for a violent movie, this is as violent as it can get, but also violent with a 10-year-old girl. So that's complicated. And
Sri,
yeah.
thank you to everyone who is watching.
Yes.
I mean, everyone
Live or
watching this
later.
review of the New York Times.
Yes. We have about 10 minutes left, so let's look at Silicon Valley is as sick of AI slop as you are. Companies strive to purge overwhelming heaps of low quality content on platforms. I wish they would do more about that. Sorry, I dropped the paper. And this book review is Microaggression in Biological War. Her new sobering book, Annie Jacobson considers the potential civilization-ending impacts of weaponized pathogens. Obviously, there's not something that Ingvill can comment on, but I wonder if one day we win a war on these pathogens, that would be considered as part of peace, that they were able to end a civil. I mean, the idea is to prevent the end of civilization, right? And if they can end the end of the threat to civilization, that would be interesting. Okay, this is what if the grid fails? A national blackout would be surprisingly easy to trigger and extremely hard to fix. Neil, can you see what city this is? I can tell, but it may be hard to convey from this thing here.
It looks like that'd be New York City if that's the Empire State Building.
No, it's
in the
not.
middle.
Yeah, I know from that distance. There's actually
Philadelphia?
San Francisco. There's actually the San Francisco and the Transamerica Center there, and this is what digital cannot convey that print can, obviously. And then you see the street. So I presume there's a photo illustration, or did this actually ever happen where San Francisco had a blackout? New York obviously has had multiple blackouts, and Naomi, by the way, tells us that Jean Reno is the French actor in The Professional. Incredible cast, she says. And you still got me on. He says his catalog was gold, but he didn't say it was 10 years old, which is also a line. All right. I think that brings us to the end of the paper. We'll just look at, can you talk for a second, Ingvill, about your thoughts on Norway's role in the world just as an ordinary citizen, about, like, I used to say how proud I am of USAID and what we do. How does the ordinary Norwegian look at the world of help that Norway gives the planet?
Well, that is, of course, a political issue here as well. We have political parties who are not that eager on spending money on aid. But there's a broad consensus in the parliament that 1% of our budget is always given to aid. And the political debate is more about how to use that money. It's not about cutting it.
And you have in Norway your own right-wing parties, but your right-wing, at least not the extremists, but your right-wing parties in America would be considered kind of center or center left, because they're not like American right and left, right? Is that correct? And even their names are kind of confusing if you were not paying attention.
Yes, I think our right party, called the Future Party, which is highly represented at the parliament, would probably be called a liberal party in the US. So the political landscape is very different. Yeah.
So I wrote this.
We don't have so much time, Sri, so I don't think I would get into a lecture about Norwegian politics. It would take too much time.
I understand, but I'm so proud of Scandinavia, and Nordic happiness can scale in the US if we let it. Lessons from Scandinavia. And did you know did you know that Republicans once had a platform similar to Democratic Socialists? This was Eisenhower's Republican Party's platform, has the same main points as today's Democratic Socialists, which are reviled in the US by Trump and other people. So that tells you how the world changes and what happens. And this is Zach Peterson, who's from Minnesota but lives in Prague and is my newsletter producer. Sunset on beautiful Lake Varnen in Sweden's largest lake. I don't know if I said it right. This is near Märstad in the Torsol microbrewery. The land in the background is Torsol, Tor's Island. How beautiful is that?
Mm-hmm.
So as we wind up here, let's just remind everybody why we're here and what we're doing. And look at this, Sandra is watching from Norway. So that's great. Thank you, Sandra, for joining us. And Apollo says, in case there's a blackout, I got a solar-powered electric generator because I live in an apartment. Shout out to EcoFlow. It's relieved my anxiety about a loss of power. Anything can happen with this administration. And earlier, Jonathan said he can remember when San Francisco had no buildings that high. And Mary says, speaking of power outages, an underreported story, the majority of the Black city of Gary, Indiana, is still without power 2 weeks after a storm. The neglect, disregard, and evidence of who matters in America. I'm so sorry, Mary. I had no idea. I did not know that. Gary, Indiana is the famous home of the Jackson family, including Michael Jackson. They were born there. And it is one of those towns that suffered greatly in the meltdown over the job losses in America. It was one of those Rust Belt cities. But those factory jobs went away and never came back. Deborah says, great show today. Thank you all for opening the world to us and trying to make sense of it. Happy Sunday. Ingvill, you played a major role in that, and we're very grateful. Walter said, even the conservatives are liberal. I've got to go see it. You do. You gotta go and see it for sure. And Naomi says, the exact Norwegian word for serendipity is, can you pronounce that?
Serendipitet.
You can also use phrases like
Tilfeldighet, by chance.
A lucky hit or stroke of luck, or a word that says a chance occurrence, depending on the context. And Naomi, you're breaking out all the Scandinavian knowledge. I didn't know you had that. So as we wrap up here, let's tell everybody that's Ingvill, that's Neil, and you've been watching live or later the New York Times read along. We do this every Sunday. And next Sunday, I won't be here. I hope Neil will have a great guest host to step in for me. And what we do is we talk about the news, we fight misinformation, disinformation, wherever you are in the world. Like Ingvill, please subscribe to a newspaper, digitally or in print, and support journalism because it matters that much and it makes a big difference in the world. Ingvill, a final word from you about the Peace Conference, about their opportunity for everyone to learn about the wonders of the Nobel Prizes.
Yeah, I just want to welcome everybody to join the Nobel Peace Conference on 3rd September. You can watch it online from 6 in the morning Eastern Time,
Seven.
whenever you wake up. 7 in the morning Eastern Time, or whenever you wake up. I hope you will join us. You'll meet Sri and me there. And check out the Nobel Peace Center's website for more on the work that we do. It was great being here. Thank you so much.
Terrific. Look at these comments. Great show, says John. Naomi calls you a superlative show and guest. Thank you. And Doug is watching in California. Imagine 90 minutes in the morning. And Ingvill, we also have other guests who have the paper lying in their driveway in California and other places, who watch the show and then decide what to read afterwards. So that's kind of fun. And Walter says, thank you so much. We're going to connect you folks and see if we can do some kind of Nobel Conference activity in here. One other thing that I'm always marvel at in Norway, because we work together, we know this, that at some point in the summer, you tell us you're taking a break, and everybody takes a break in Norway for several weeks, at least a month. That's a beautiful thing. Neil and I are just in shock when we first heard this, that you get a month off, because here people just aren't coordinated like that and will not be able to do it. Much bigger country, obviously. If all Americans took a holiday, the country would crash. But you all, just the way you adjust to life and how the world or how the country works to support you, than you to support the country, as the rat race. I'm sure all of that exists in Norway, but to an outsider, it's such a beautiful and special place.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to having you come to Oslo, Sri.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sri, as a reminder for folks, if you're watching and you joined us late, you'll be able to watch the replay from the beginning on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and the Digimentors website. A few quick announcements before we go. Again, we've been talking about Democracy on the Brink, the Nobel Peace Conference, which will be September 3rd in Oslo and online. Sri and Ingvill will be on stage in Oslo. I'll be helping with social media online. And the show, again, we want to thank our sponsors, Muckrack and the Graphic History Company. It's produced, of course, by Digimentors. And I want to make sure to put one more plug in, Sri, for the Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health coming up this Thursday, August 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Ingvill, this will be a little bit late for you in Norway, but maybe you can catch the replay. Sri will be my guest. Dawn and I host this show about mental health, and we'll be talking about social media, the impact of social media on teens and adults as it regards mental health. Should be a fascinating conversation.
Neil, I look forward to being grilled. I look forward to being grilled by you, and you're scraping the bottom of that barrel over there, Neil. But thank you. Episode 55. Amazing that you've done that all these months. And Diana says, join late, but we'll rewatch later. Thank you for being my Sunday morning ghost spot. Diana is in California, so it's now 7 a.m. But she is an early morning riser, and we're so happy to have you, Diana, and the entire New York Times Read Along family. Thank you for watching. Follow the Nobel Peace Center, nobelpeace.org, nobelpeacecenter.org. Make sure that you are able to check them out, and please support the work of the Nobel Prizes. Thank you, everybody. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.